A car showroom owner kicked out the American customer from the showroom, and what happened later will shock you. So watch till the end. The gleaming windows of the luxury car showroom reflected the sun's golden rays, casting a dazzling glow on the pristine vehicles inside. Customers walked in and out, their chatter mingling with the hum of the air conditioning. The showroom was known for its exclusive clientele, a place where only the wealthy dared to venture. Sales staff, dressed in tailored suits, worked diligently to close deals on cars that cost more than most people's yearly salaries. Behind the polished counters, the owner surveyed his domain with a smug expression. His reputation for being arrogant and judgmental preceded him. Today, he was particularly proud of a new sports car that had just arrived, a model so rare that only a few could afford it. Little did he know, this day would go down in history as the moment his empire crumbled. The chime of the entrance bell caught everyone's attention as a man stepped in, wearing a simple shirt and jeans. He looked around, his gaze steady but humble. The staff exchanged glances, their smiles faltering. The man's attire didn't scream wealth, and in a place like this, appearances were everything. The man walked with quiet confidence toward the gleaming sports car that had just arrived. His dark skin and modest clothing made him stand out in the showroom filled with affluent customers. Despite the unspoken judgments hanging in the air, he seemed unbothered. He reached out to touch the car's sleek exterior, his eyes glinting with admiration. For the staff, however, his presence was more of an inconvenience than an opportunity. From his vantage point behind the counter, the owner noticed the man and immediately frowned. Another window shopper, he muttered under his breath. His mind was quick to categorize people, and in his world, this man didn't fit the profile of someone who could afford anything here. With a dismissive wave, he gestured to a junior salesman to handle the customer. The junior salesman hesitated but complied, approaching the man with feigned politeness. "May I help you?" he asked, his tone betraying his disinterest. The owner leaned back in his chair, already convinced this encounter would amount to nothing. He didn't realize his assumptions were about to cost him everything. The man bent down to examine the car's intricate detailing, running his fingers along the metallic paint. The craftsmanship was exquisite, and he nodded appreciatively. He opened the door to peek inside, marveling at the leather seats and state-of-the-art dashboard. It was clear he knew his cars, though his demeanor remained understated. A few salespeople watched from a distance, their curiosity piqued but not enough to approach him. One of them whispered, "Why is he even looking at that car? Does he think he can afford it?" The man, undeterred, continued his inspection, jotting down notes on his phone. His interest was genuine, even if no one else could see it. After completing his inspection, the man turned to the nearest salesperson and asked, "Could you tell me more about this model? I'd like to know the specs and the price." The salesperson hesitated, unsure if he should waste time entertaining someone who likely wouldn't buy anything. He reluctantly rattled off the details, skimming over the finer points. "This car starts at $150,000, and it's the last one available in this state," he added, hoping to scare the man off with the price. Instead, the customer smiled, nodding thoughtfully. "Interesting," he said, "I'd like to take it for a test drive if possible." Hearing the customer request a test drive, the salesperson hesitated and glanced nervously toward the owner. The owner, perched behind his desk, had been observing the interaction with increasing annoyance. He stood up and strode over, his expression hardening with disdain. "Is there a problem here?" he asked curtly, his voice loud enough to draw attention. The customer, maintaining his composure, repeated his request for a test drive. The owner scoffed, waving his hand dismissively. "Test drives aren't for people who can't afford the car," he said bluntly. "We don't waste time on joyrides." The words hung in the air like a slap, but the customer simply stood there, unflinching. His calm demeanor seemed to irritate the owner even more. "I understand your policy," the customer said calmly, "but I assure you I'm a serious buyer. I'd like to test the car before making a purchase." His tone was polite yet firm, a stark contrast to the owner's growing hostility. The staff watched in silence, unsure whether to intervene or let their boss handle the situation. The owner's face turned red with frustration. "Do you even realize what this car costs?" he snapped, pointing to the price tag displayed on the windshield. This isn't some rental car. If you want to try before you buy, I suggest heading to a used car lot. His condescending words drew a few awkward chuckles from other customers, but the customer remained composed, standing his ground. By now, the owner's voice had risen to a near shout, drawing attention from everyone in the showroom. "Why are you even here?" he demanded. "You're wasting my staff's time and mine. We have real buyers to attend to." His words were sharp, each one dripping with prejudice and impatience. The customer met his gaze steadily, his calmness unnerving the owner further. "I didn't realize asking for information was considered wasting time," he replied, his voice steady. The owner sneered, "Time is money, and you're not spending either here. Get out before I call security." The tension in the room was palpable, with everyone holding their breath to see what would happen next. The owner, now fully in the spotlight, decided to drive his point home. "Let me guess," he said loudly, his tone mocking. "You walked in here thinking you could dream big, right? Maybe take a selfie with the car to show off to your friends?" His laughter echoed through the showroom, but it was met with uncomfortable silence from the staff and customers. The man didn't flinch. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. "If you're so concerned about my ability to pay, this should settle it," he said, holding up the card. The owner, however, didn't even glance at it. He was too consumed by his own arrogance to register the significance of the gesture. The customer remained calm despite the humiliation. "I didn't come here for a photo," he said evenly. "I came here to buy this car outright, and I'll pay in full today." His words were measured, but they carried a weight that silenced the murmurs in the room. The owner crossed his arms, a disbelieving smirk on his face. "Oh really? And where exactly do you plan to get that kind of money?" he sneered. The customer's expression didn't waver. "That's not your concern," he replied. "But you're making a big mistake by treating me this way." The owner's laughter filled the room once again, oblivious to the turn his day was about to take. The owner, now feeling fully in control of the situation, leaned forward, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Tell you what," he said, looking the customer up and down, "I'll let you take a look at the paperwork. But don't expect any special treatment." He motioned toward his desk, clearly eager to show the customer who was in charge. The customer, unfazed by the show of dominance, calmly followed the owner's gesture and walked toward the desk. The entire showroom fell into a hushed silence, with everyone watching intently. The owner, still underestimating the man, handed over the papers with a smug grin. "Sign here, and you can have the car," he said, thinking the situation was over. But the customer's next words would turn everything upside down. As the customer scanned the paperwork, he paused and looked up at the owner with a quiet smile. "I'm not just here to buy a car," he said, his voice steady. The owner's eyes narrowed, his smug expression faltering. "What do you mean?" he asked, clearly taken aback by the unexpected turn in the conversation. The customer set the papers down and continued, "I've been following the dealership's performance for a while now. I'm actually a potential investor, interested in acquiring a significant share of this showroom's operations." The owner's arrogance instantly turned to confusion. "What?" he stammered, unsure how to react. The showroom's future, it seemed, was about to take a drastic shift. The owner's face flushed red with frustration and embarrassment. "You think you can just walk in here and make demands?" he snapped. "This showroom's mine. You have no idea how business works." His voice was sharp and his posture defensive, but there was an underlying tremor of fear. He had spent years building this business, and the idea that it could slip through his fingers so easily rattled him. The customer, still calm, placed a folder on the desk, his eyes never leaving the owner. "I've done my research," he said softly. "I have the capital, the connections, and the interest to turn this place around. If you'd like, we can sit down and discuss a partnership, but I don't think that's what you're interested in." The owner, clearly rattled by the customer's assertiveness, stood frozen, unable to comprehend the shift in dynamics. The customer leaned in slightly, speaking with quiet authority. "I'm offering to purchase the dealership today, at market value. We can negotiate the terms later, but I'd like to move forward with this now." His offer was generous, and it came with a promise of better opportunities for the showroom. However, the owner's pride was too strong to accept it. "No," The owner shot back, his voice rising in anger. I built this business from the ground up, and I'm not selling it to someone like you. You don't belong here. His words, filled with spite and indignation, revealed the depth of his prejudice. The customer, unmoved by the owner's refusal, simply nodded. Well, I guess that's your loss, he replied. What happened next would force the owner to face a reality he never expected. The customer leaned back, allowing a moment of silence to hang in the air. The staff and customers in the showroom were watching closely now, waiting for the next move. I've already arranged the purchase, he said finally, his voice steady but firm. The owner's face went pale as he struggled to make sense of what was happening. What are you talking about? The owner stammered. You can't just buy my business without my approval. But the customer's words were not a threat, they were a promise. It's already in motion. I've spoken with your investors, and the paperwork is being finalized as we speak. The owner's world seemed to crumble as he realized that his empire was slipping from his grasp. The showroom's atmosphere had shifted from curiosity to shock as the owner tried to regain control of the situation. He spluttered, trying to find a way to salvage his pride, but his words were failing him. You can't do this, he yelled, his voice growing desperate. You have no right to take over my business. The customer, his demeanor calm as ever, stood up from the desk and looked around the showroom. You're right, he said quietly. I don't have the right. But I do have the power. His words struck with such finality that they seemed to echo in the room. The owner, now standing rigid and trembling with fury, could do nothing but watch as the customer's plan unfolded, leaving him powerless to stop it. The owner, now visibly panicking, rushed to grab his phone from his pocket, his fingers trembling as he dialed his lawyer's number. I need you here right now, he barked into the phone, his voice laced with urgency. This is an emergency. Someone's trying to take my business. He paced the showroom floor, his eyes darting toward the customer, as if he could will the situation back to his control. The customer, standing quietly near the desk, didn't flinch. His expression remained calm as he waited for the inevitable confrontation. Take your time, he said with a quiet smile. I'll still be here when you get back. The deal's already in motion, no matter who you call. The owner, ignoring the calmness of the customer, kept muttering angrily into the phone. His every attempt to regain control was futile, as the reality of the situation sank in. As the owner's frustration mounted, the staff in the showroom grew more and more uncomfortable. They had witnessed the escalating tension between the customer and their boss, and now they could sense something was amiss. The customer's calm demeanor, his steady confidence in the face of the owner's anger, was unsettling. Whispers spread among the employees, and some exchanged confused glances. A few of them had heard rumors of the customer's involvement in various businesses, but they never expected to see it unfold like this. The showroom, once a place of pride for the owner, now felt like a stage for an inevitable downfall. The customer, meanwhile, stood quietly by, waiting for the owner to realize the full extent of his miscalculation. A few minutes later, the showroom door swung open, and a well-dressed lawyer entered, his face serious. The owner rushed toward him, a look of relief on his face. Thank God you're here, he said, his voice strained. I need you to stop this. This man is trying to take over my business. The lawyer, however, merely glanced at the customer and then at the owner. I'm afraid the deal's already been finalized, the lawyer said flatly. The owner froze. What? He muttered, his voice low with disbelief. The lawyer continued, everything's in place. The contracts have been signed, and the transfer of ownership has been processed. You no longer own this dealership? The owner's face turned ashen, his mouth opening and closing in a futile attempt to respond. The reality of the situation finally sank in for the owner. He staggered backward, his face turning a deeper shade of red with each passing moment. This is a joke, he muttered under his breath. There's no way this is happening. His fingers clenched into fists as his body trembled with rage. The showroom staff exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared to speak. You made the mistake of underestimating me, the customer said, his tone measured but firm. You treated me like I didn't belong here, and now I'm in charge. The owner's anger flared as he stepped toward the customer, ready to argue, but his words faltered. No matter how hard he tried to resist, he knew that his empire had been taken from him in an instant. With the deal officially settled, the customer extended his hand toward the owner. "Welcome to the new reality," he said with a slight smile. "I'll be overseeing operations from now on." The owner, now a mere bystander in his own business, hesitated for a moment before reluctantly shaking the customer's hand. The gesture, though courteous, symbolized his complete surrender to the unexpected turn of events. As the handshake concluded, the customer took his first step toward taking control. The staff, still reeling from the sudden shift in power, stood frozen, unsure of what to expect next. The owner, once so sure of himself and his position, now found himself an outsider in the very space he had built. His pride, crushed under the weight of his arrogance, had led him to a place he never thought possible. The former owner, still processing the sudden loss, attempted to salvage what little dignity he had left. "I built this business," he shouted. "I'll go public with this, I'll expose you." His face was contorted with rage as he tried to regain some semblance of power, but the customer simply watched him with disinterest. "Go ahead," the customer replied with a shrug. "You're welcome to do whatever you like, but it won't change a thing. This dealership is mine now, and I plan to run it better than you ever did." The former owner's words, desperate and laced with frustration, fell on deaf ears. The customer had already won, and no amount of public outrage could take that away. Over the following days, the showroom staff began to see a noticeable shift in the way things were run. The new owner's approach was calm, methodical, and considerate. Rather than the harsh and demanding attitude they had grown accustomed to, the new leader treated everyone with respect, fostering a positive and productive environment. At first, the staff remained wary, unsure of how to react to the sudden changes. But as the days went by, they began to realize that their new boss was a man of action, not just words. He listened to their concerns, addressed issues with empathy, and worked alongside them to improve the showroom's operations. Slowly, the staff grew more comfortable, beginning to view the customer not as an outsider, but as their new leader, one who valued their input and hard work. In an attempt to salvage his reputation and his place in the industry, the former owner reached out to several loyal customers. He called, emailed, and even visited some, telling them that the new ownership was a mistake and urging them to stop doing business with the dealership. "This is a family-run business," he argued, "and this outsider doesn't understand the values that made it successful." However, his efforts quickly backfired. Many of the loyal customers, who had once supported the dealership because of the owner's commitment, now found themselves skeptical. The customer who had purchased the dealership had already made a name for himself in the industry, and his calm leadership was beginning to show positive results. Slowly, more and more clients began returning to the dealership, impressed by the changes they saw. The former owner's appeal was falling on deaf ears, and it was clear the transition had become permanent. Once the customer took control, he wasted no time in implementing changes that were long overdue. He started by reorganizing the showroom floor, making it more spacious and welcoming. The car display was rearranged, and the sales process was streamlined to make it more customer-friendly. The new owner's experience in business allowed him to quickly identify areas where the dealership had been losing money or operating inefficiently. He also restructured the sales team, encouraging collaboration and offering professional development opportunities to improve their skills. Instead of treating employees like disposable assets, he motivated them to bring their best to the table. Within weeks, the showroom had a fresh, vibrant energy, and customers began noticing the difference. The efficiency of the operation improved, and profits started to rise, much to the surprise of those who doubted his ability to turn things around. The former owner's bitterness grew as the dealership, under new ownership, flourished. He couldn't stand seeing his old business thrive without him. He would pass by the showroom, watching customers pour in and out, the place bustling with activity. Each time he saw the sign with the new owner's name, a sharp pang of jealousy struck him. His pride wouldn't allow him to accept that the business was doing better without him. Yet, no matter how much he tried to downplay the success of the new owner, he couldn't ignore the undeniable truth: the dealership was thriving. The customer who had taken over was running things more efficiently, and the staff was happier. It seemed the former owner had been so blinded by his arrogance that he couldn't see how his lack of foresight had led to his downfall. The success of the dealership, which he once viewed as his empire, now seemed out of his reach. As time passed, the former owner's financial situation began to decline. Without the dealership's steady profits, he found himself in mounting debt. His investments, which once seemed like a reliable source of income, started to underperform, and his attempts to revive his old business failed. He refused to accept the sale and its consequences, blaming everyone but himself for his downfall. Meanwhile, the new owner of the dealership was making strategic moves to expand the business. The former owner watched in horror as the wealth and success that once seemed guaranteed to him slipped further away. His refusal to accept the reality of the situation only worsened his financial problems. He had once prided himself on his business acumen, but now he found himself struggling, his empire reduced to nothing more than a distant memory. Over time, the new owner's reputation grew beyond the walls of the dealership. The community, which had once been skeptical about his sudden takeover, began to see him as a visionary leader. His involvement in local charity events, commitment to hiring from the community, and transparency in business operations won him admiration. People appreciated the way he treated his employees and customers alike, always prioritizing service and integrity. The former owner, on the other hand, became an afterthought in the eyes of many. His once popular name was no longer synonymous with the dealership's success. The new owner had completely transformed the business and, in the process, had earned the community's respect. His leadership style, focused on humility and progress, stood in stark contrast to the former owner's arrogance, and it was clear who the community viewed as the true force behind the dealership's resurgence. As the dealership continued to grow, the new owner's business philosophy caught the attention of other local entrepreneurs. His focus on customer satisfaction, employee well-being, and sustainable business practices made him a model for others in the area. Small businesses started to reach out to him for advice, hoping to emulate his success. His open-door policy and willingness to mentor other business owners made him a respected figure in the community. His approach was a refreshing change from the cutthroat, profit-first mentality that many had come to expect from successful business owners. Instead, the new owner focused on creating long-term relationships, both with customers and employees, which had proven to be more effective in ensuring lasting success. As his reputation spread, he became an advocate for small businesses, encouraging fair practices and ethical entrepreneurship, which further solidified his status as a leader in the business community. In an attempt to regain his lost fortune, the former owner tried to open a new dealership, convinced that his experience would bring success once again. However, his tarnished reputation preceded him, and potential investors and customers were wary of associating with him. Word of his mistreatment of employees and customers had spread, and many were reluctant to take a chance on his new venture. Despite his best efforts, the former owner's new dealership struggled from the outset. Customers were few and far between, and the business never gained the traction he had hoped for. His inability to accept the lessons from his previous failures and his refusal to adapt to the changing business landscape ensured that his new venture would fail. As he watched the new owner of his former dealership continue to thrive, the former owner realized too late that success was not just about arrogance, it was about adaptability and humility. The new owner quickly recognized that expanding the dealership services was essential to attracting a wider customer base. He introduced new financing options that made car ownership more accessible to individuals with various credit scores. By partnering with multiple banks and financial institutions, he ensured that customers had competitive loan terms and flexible payment plans. Additionally, he launched maintenance packages that allowed customers to keep their cars in top condition, further enhancing their relationship with the dealership. This move significantly boosted the dealership's customer retention rate. Clients no longer just saw the dealership as a place to buy cars, they saw it as a full-service provider, capable of meeting all their automotive needs. The maintenance packages made it easier for customers to return, and the financing options brought in new buyers who might have otherwise gone elsewhere. As the dealership's reputation grew, so did its profits, and soon the business had become a local powerhouse in the automotive industry. As the former owner's financial situation worsened, his old friends and business partners began to distance themselves. He had once been a respected figure, known for his charm and business savvy, but now his reputation had taken a hit. Many of the people he had worked with over the years were hesitant to be associated with him, fearing that his negative reputation would affect their own businesses. The former owner's calls went unanswered, and meetings were abruptly cancelled. It became clear that his pride and refusal to change had cost him not just his business, but also his personal connections. His attempts to salvage his relationships by throwing money at the problem only made things worse. People who had once trusted him now saw him as someone who had allowed his arrogance to ruin everything he had built. He was left isolated, his network eroding as quickly as his wealth. The new owner's secret to success lay in his deep commitment to the customer experience. He didn't just sell cars. He created a welcoming atmosphere where people felt valued. He encouraged his staff to be attentive, friendly, and professional, training them to go the extra mile in meeting customer needs. Whether it was offering a cup of coffee while they waited or providing detailed information about each vehicle, the customer experience was always top of mind. This dedication to excellence paid off. Word of mouth spread quickly, and more people began to flock to the dealership. Customers appreciated the transparency, honesty, and personalized service they received, which made them feel more like part of the dealership's family than just another sale. The new owner's customer-first philosophy became the cornerstone of his success, and his dealership became known as a place where people could not only buy a car but also build a lasting relationship. In a fit of rage, the former owner made a public outburst that shocked everyone. After a particularly difficult day, where his new business venture had failed yet again, he appeared at a local event and, in front of a crowd, launched into a tirade against the new owner of the dealership. He accused him of taking what was rightfully his, and in a moment of weakness, he blamed the world for his downfall. The bitterness that had been simmering inside him for months finally exploded, and his words were filled with venom. The public spectacle did little to help his cause. Instead of garnering sympathy, his outburst only further tarnished his reputation. The community, already wary of him, now saw him as unhinged and bitter. People were disgusted by the way he lashed out, and his actions made it clear that he had not learned any lessons from his failures. The event ended in embarrassment for the former owner, who now found himself even further removed from the people he once considered friends and allies. Understanding that the key to sustained success was not just about inventory or marketing, the new owner decided to invest heavily in employee training. He introduced comprehensive training programs that covered everything from sales techniques to customer service and even the technical aspects of car maintenance. He wanted every member of his team to feel confident in their roles and to be equipped with the knowledge to assist customers in a meaningful way. This focus on employee development paid off. Customers began to notice a marked improvement in the level of service they received. Sales staff were more knowledgeable, technicians were better equipped to handle maintenance requests, and even the receptionists had a deep understanding of the vehicles they were representing. The dealership's reputation for professionalism and customer care spread like wildfire, and it became clear that the new owner's investment in his employees was a central factor in the business's growth. As the months passed, many of the former owner's employees began to realize that their careers would be better off under the leadership of the new owner. Frustrated by the toxic environment and lack of opportunity under the old regime, they began seeking positions at the newly transformed dealership. Some started in entry-level positions, while others took on more senior roles. Under the new owner, these employees found not only job security but also job satisfaction. He fostered a culture of respect and growth, offering competitive pay and opportunities for advancement. Many of them had been loyal to the old owner for years, but they found that the new owner's approach to leadership resonated with them on a much deeper level. Their success became a reflection of the positive changes taking place at the dealership, and the former owner, now without his trusted team, was left to watch his empire crumble even further. After seeing the remarkable success of the original dealership, the new owner decided it was time to expand. He opened a second location in a neighboring city, leveraging the brand's reputation and loyal customer base to attract new business. The new dealership was built with the same commitment to customer service, and it wasn't long before it started to experience similar success to the first. This expansion not only solidified his position as the leading car dealership in the region, but it also demonstrated his ability to replicate his winning formula. By offering quality cars, great customer service, and an exceptional buying experience, the new owner's dealerships were now a staple in the area. The former owner, by contrast, found himself isolated and struggling, unable to even hold onto the little he had left. His dream of regaining control had long faded, and he could only watch as his competitor flourished. The new owner understood that business success wasn't just about selling cars, it was about being an active participant in the community. He made it a priority to support local charities, sponsor events, and partner with schools to create programs that would benefit the youth. He used his dealership's platform to raise awareness for causes such as environmental conservation, education, and hunger relief. His commitment to giving back to the community paid off in dividends. Customers who valued corporate social responsibility were drawn to the dealership, knowing they were supporting a business that cared about more than just profits. As a result, the dealership gained a loyal following, and the brand became synonymous with community support. This reputation helped solidify the dealership's place as a trusted local business, further fueling its growth and ensuring that it remained a market leader. The former owner's financial struggles were no longer a private matter. Word began to spread that his once thriving business had crumbled, and soon enough, news outlets picked up the story. Articles and reports detailed his failed ventures and mounting debts, painting a picture of a man who had lost everything due to his pride and inability to adapt. His former partners, who had distanced themselves from him long ago, were now willing to speak publicly about the fall of the once prominent businessman. The publicity surrounding his financial downfall added insult to injury. Instead of rebuilding his reputation, he found himself becoming the subject of gossip and ridicule. The media painted him as a cautionary tale, warning others about the dangers of arrogance and mismanagement. The more the public learned about his decline, the further he sank into obscurity. It was a harsh reminder that a failure to evolve could lead to the most crushing of losses. With the success of his car dealerships, the new owner began looking for ways to further grow his wealth and secure his financial future. He decided to diversify his investments and ventured into real estate. Using the profits from the dealerships, he bought commercial properties, residential buildings, and even land. His approach was calculated, and he made sure each investment complemented his existing business ventures. Real estate proved to be a lucrative opportunity, with property values appreciating over time. The new owner's diversified portfolio not only gave him additional revenue streams but also acted as a safety net in case the automotive industry experienced a downturn. His shrewd financial decisions ensured that his success was not just a one-time fluke, but a long-term strategy that would secure his wealth for years to come. The contrast between his foresight and the former owner's short-sightedness could not have been more stark. As his business continued to grow, the new owner began to receive recognition from industry experts and business leaders. His innovative approach to leadership, which focused on customer satisfaction, employee empowerment, and community engagement, set him apart from his competitors. He was invited to speak at conferences, participate in panel discussions, and contribute to industry publications. These opportunities enhanced his credibility and further solidified his reputation as a forward-thinking businessman. His success story became a case study for entrepreneurs looking to build sustainable businesses in a competitive market. The recognition from experts also helped to attract new customers, investors, and business partners, all of whom were eager to be associated with a leader who was making waves in the automotive industry. As the former owner's business empire collapsed, so did his personal life. With his financial ruin came the loss of social connections, and his once active social circle began to fade away. Friends who had stood by him during his rise to the top now saw him as a cautionary tale. His personal relationships began to deteriorate, and even his family, who had once supported his every move, began to distance themselves from him. The isolation took a toll on the former owner. He found himself alone in his empty house, regretting the choices he had made and the pride that had led to his downfall. The loneliness became unbearable, and he had no one left to turn to for comfort or guidance. The man who had once commanded respect and admiration was now a shadow of his former self, consumed by bitterness and despair. The silence in his life was a stark contrast to the success and hustle that once defined him. The new owner's approach to running his dealership became a benchmark for others in the automotive industry. His unique combination of customer service, employee satisfaction, and community involvement created a blueprint for success. As his reputation grew, other dealership owners began to reach out, asking for advice and insight into how he had turned his business around. The new owner was more than willing to share his knowledge and experiences. He mentored others in the industry, helping them create their own successful businesses based on the principles he had implemented. His dealership became a case study in how to adapt to a changing market, prioritize customer needs, and create a positive workplace environment. This not only increased his standing in the industry but also established him as a thought leader with the power to influence the future of automotive sales. As the former owner's financial situation continued to worsen, he found himself facing legal action from a growing number of creditors. Bills and loans that he had neglected to pay were now being brought to court, and lawsuits piled up one after the other. The legal fees began to mount, further draining his already dwindling resources. Despite his efforts to negotiate settlements, the lawsuits proved to be too much for him to handle. His business dealings had been reckless, and now the consequences were catching up with him. The former owner, once a respected figure in the community, was now forced to fight a losing battle in the courts. Each new lawsuit brought more stress and anxiety, and it became clear that he was no longer in control of his own destiny. As the dealership flourished and his business expanded, the new owner's success story began to garner national attention. Major media outlets, including business magazines and news networks, took notice of his remarkable rise. Interviews, profiles, and articles detailed his journey from an unknown car dealership owner to a leader in the industry. His story was one of resilience, smart decision-making, and a customer-first mindset. National recognition brought even more opportunities for growth. Investors showed interest in his dealership, and other businesses sought to collaborate with him. The new owner became a symbol of how determination and integrity could lead to great success, even in the face of adversity. His story served as an inspiration for aspiring entrepreneurs, proving that with the right mindset, it was possible to rebuild and thrive, no matter the obstacles in the way. Recognizing the value of investing in the next generation of automotive professionals, the new owner launched an automotive training program at his dealership. This initiative was designed to provide aspiring individuals with the skills, knowledge, and experience necessary to succeed in the competitive automotive industry. The program covered everything from customer service excellence to technical skills, leadership, and business management. The training program quickly became popular, attracting young talent from all over the country. The new owner mentored students personally, offering them hands-on experience while instilling in them the values that had made his dealership successful: integrity, hard work, and commitment to community. Graduates of the program went on to become successful leaders within the industry, some even starting their own dealerships. The new owner's investment in training the future generation helped ensure the continued success of the automotive industry, while also strengthening his legacy as a business leader and mentor. Desperate to reclaim what he had lost, the former owner tried everything in his power to regain control of the dealership. He hired top lawyers, attempted to buy back the business, and even tried to sabotage the new owner's success by spreading rumors and lies about his business practices. However, each of his attempts was met with failure. The new owner's reputation was solid, and the community had rallied behind him. Legal battles were long and drawn out, but in the end, the courts ruled in favor of the new owner, cementing his position as the rightful owner. Even his former friends and colleagues had lost faith in the disgraced businessman. The former owner's desperation only led to further humiliation, and the more he fought, the more his reputation deteriorated. His pride and arrogance, which had once been his strengths, now became his greatest weaknesses, leaving him powerless to reclaim what he had lost. As the automotive industry began shifting toward more sustainable practices, the new owner embraced the change. He introduced a series of green initiatives at his dealership, such as offering electric vehicle (EV) options, investing in solar energy for his showroom, and reducing waste through recycling programs. His dealership became known as an environmentally responsible business, appealing to a growing segment of eco-conscious customers. The move paid off, as many customers were eager to support businesses that prioritized sustainability. The new owner also forged partnerships with green technology companies to offer the latest in energy-efficient automotive options. These efforts further cemented his reputation as a forward-thinking business leader who was not only focused on financial success but also on the health of the planet. The dealership's commitment to sustainability proved to be both ethically sound and financially rewarding, bringing in a new wave of customers and increasing brand loyalty. Unable to accept his fall from grace, the former owner took to social media to vent his frustrations. He began posting inflammatory messages, attacking the new owner and anyone who had supported him. His social media accounts were filled with rants, blaming others for his downfall and refusing to take any responsibility for his own actions. The public spectacle quickly spiraled out of control, attracting attention from both supporters and detractors. While some people sympathized with him, the majority saw his actions as petty and unprofessional. His once stellar reputation continued to deteriorate as he became a figure of ridicule on social media. Memes and jokes about his downfall flooded the internet, and soon, he became a cautionary tale of how bitterness and pride could destroy a once promising career. His inability to move on from the past and accept his failure became his defining characteristic, overshadowing any remaining achievements he had once earned. Under the new owner's leadership, the dealership transformed into a local institution, providing more than just cars. It became a vital part of the community. The dealership employed dozens of people, offering jobs ranging from sales associates to technicians, marketing specialists, and customer service representatives. By focusing on creating a positive work environment and offering fair wages, the new owner was able to attract dedicated employees who helped propel the business to even greater success. The dealership also helped drive local economic growth. By partnering with nearby businesses, hosting job fairs, and supporting local events, the new owner ensured that the success of his dealership extended beyond his own company. The dealership became a beacon of prosperity, showing that a business could thrive while positively impacting the community. The new owner's commitment to economic development and job creation solidified his standing as both a successful businessman and a valued member of the community.